So, first of all, I would like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down and do this interview with me. Just to let you know, this interview will be watched by my professor as well as my classmates. If this is okay with you and you consent to proceed, we can go ahead and get started. Do you consent to being recorded and have the recording viewed as a part of my assignment?
Yes.
So, to me, you are my big brother. And of course, to my daughter, you are the favorite uncle. Can you formally introduce yourself and state your career and position?
My name is Kendall Luna, and I am a deputy sheriff with the sheriff's office.
What initially drew you to a career in law enforcement?
It's not a career that originally I thought I was going to do. Um, it was, um, I always wanted to work in the jail and work for the SWAT program, and that gave people in custody a chance to um, not be in jail, and basically they would work 8 hours in lieu of being in jail all the time. So people originally it was designed for people who were um, loggers and fishermen and such, people who needed to work in order to keep their house, and the program allowed them to do that. Um, I was able to work in that position. It takes a little while and some skills to get into, but I was able to work it, be a part of it, and from there, I decided to kind of advance my career to the position of deputy sheriff.
Can you walk me through your training process to become a police officer?
Yes, the you have to go to a post academy, a basic law enforcement academy, and we have one here locally at College of the Redwoods. It's about 6 months, and they go over many different subjects, and you have to pass all of those in order to become a police officer.
What kinds of skills and knowledge did you have to develop?
To become a police officer,
Mm.
um, a lot. It takes a bit of maturity, a good sense of humor, um, uh, strong resolve, lots of patience, um, time management skills, and being able to operate under pressure. And I think the biggest one is just good people skills.
What does a typical day or week look like for you on the job?
Um,
I know you play two different roles as a sheriff deputy. You can touch on both of them if you want.
yeah. Currently, right now, I'm doing a rotation in courts as a bailiff. So I'm in charge of judicial protection and decorum of the courtroom. And that is basically I'm in charge of protecting the judge and making sure that the courtroom is in order, getting inmates um, to and from court. Um, that is the main purpose as our role as a bailiff. Um, on patrol, it can be any number of things. It's very call. Um, well, there's two parts. There's proactivity, and there's a call center. So when you call 911 or you call the sheriff's office, you report something. Dispatcher will listen to what you're reporting and decide whether it needs deputy assistance or not. If they're not sure, they'll have a deputy respond or contact the person um, to see if they can help solve their issue. It could be anything from a civil matter to a criminal matter. Uh, Basically, I'll come to work, I'll go to briefing, we'll get a kind of a brief synopsis of what happened the night before, any hot topics. From there, I go to my office, which is my patrol vehicle, um, and I will patrol the rural areas of the county. Also, deputy sheriffs are in charge of the rural unincorporated areas of Humboldt County. So that includes the outskirts of Eureka, Shelter Cove, Garberville, Willow Creek, Hoopa, Oric, Orleans, um, the outskirts of Fortuna, anything that's not incorporated as a city, which also includes McKinleyville too, because they're not a city. So I will be assigned to either one of those areas. I will patrol and look for vehicle code violations, and from there contact people. And depending on the contact, depending on if there's something that warrants further police action, I'll make a decision from there. Otherwise, it's call based. We have MDTs in our vehicles. It's a laptop, and it shows us calls that are pending in the county, and I can either respond or our dispatchers will assign us to handle calls, which could be anything from domestic violence calls, child abuse investigations, any kind of criminal complaint, someone reporting whether there's burglary or anything else happening, is what I could be dispatched to.
What do you find most rewarding about your work?
Um, the positive interactions, um, which it's hard. You see people at their when they're most animated, and sometimes it's not always a positive interaction. But if I can leave a call with a positive interaction, if I can make someone's day better somehow, although I mean, some of my interactions aren't going to be positive. Sometimes it may be taking someone to jail. If I can just have a positive interaction, give someone a better view in this day and age of law enforcement, and let people know that I'm here to actually help you, or the community, then that's probably the best part of the
To piggyback on that, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face?
day. Biggest challenges. Um, well, it's not always a friendly job, so I'm often put in dangerous situations. I've had guns pointed at me. I've been into altercations with people as a result of something happening on a call. Um, there's also the challenges of the progressive evolution of law enforcement, um, which there are. I feel with any job, there's good workers and bad workers. And there are a lot of law enforcement officers that give other law enforcement officers a bad name. But when someone messes up, it it makes it harder for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
This is my this is the town that I grew up in. I plan on being here, and I want positive interactions with my community. So that's how I choose to interact. Uh, you can make the best or worst out of a situation.
Right.
And I have to see folks that I come into contact with later on, and I don't want that person to be, if I can help it, no matter who it is, I don't want that person to have um, negative feelings towards me or feel like I slighted them in some way, other than that I was just doing my job.
So how do you how do you think that it's best to, or how do you build trust and positive relationships with people in the community?
Um, I think that I have just being true to what I've said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make promises that I can't keep to people. Um, and I, I try to not make things personal. And if someone's got a question, um, if I'm, you know, if I'm busy or if I'm under a lot of stress, it might seem like um, I'm a little pressed, but I try to make that time to talk to people and answer their questions.
Have you received any specialized training in areas like mental health, crisis intervention, or working with diverse populations?
Yes, in the academy, you go through that. As growing up in this community, you and I are both of an ethnic background. You're Native, and I'm Hispanic and Native, so I understand some of those some of the issues in our community,
Mm.
along with I think this is my 15th year working for the sheriff's office. When I worked, for I was a correction officer before I was a deputy sheriff, and I got to work with many different people from different backgrounds, ethnic, and just different walks of life in general. So the correctional facility is really good about sending you to trainings for that, along with uh, the crisis intervention team and motivational interviewing team, because there's uh, law enforcement's changing in a sense where it's not just well, it's changing in a sense that the counties are providing more resources to people and taking a different approach about responding to calls. Now we have a mental health team, the MISS team, and often they'll respond with us to calls. Um, and they're much more trained in situations like that. They have keys to doors that I can't open to county services. Our training only takes us so far, but now we're more aware, of people of calls that require more than what I can offer, and we'll handle calls together to try and come to a resolution that's not just law enforcement related.
Right. Um, that's great. So, in a way, it sounds like you have a lot of social work type backgrounds and mental health backgrounds that can go out and help you. I believe the CSET team, correct? That
CSET, we don't have CSET at the sheriff's office.
Mhm.
CSET, I believe, is partnered with the city of
EPD.
Eureka.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what relationship do you see social work as having with policing?
Um, kind of like what I touched on earlier. It's a means for um, a resolution, for a more appropriate resolution at times.
Mhm.
Sometimes it can be just putting someone in touch with resources to help kind of get someone going in the right direction. Uh, and I feel that it's a step in the right direction. Um, I think there will always be a need for police officers, but I also agree with the way that uh, laws are changing to where um, mental health workers and social workers should be involved at the time of a call's occurrence. It can really help de-escalate things. Sometimes it's better for people to see someone not in uniform,
Mm.
because I feel that unfortunately, it is frightening, um, and it can kind of put people at edge. But having another person there, a neutral person there, can calm things and resolve things.
Okay. How do you cope with the stressful or emotional aspects of your job? And what kind of supports are available to help you?
It depends on what it is.
Mhm.
Um, and after you go to a lot of calls, and um, not just criminal related calls. You go to calls of dead body calls, people who have committed suicide, people who have overdosed, some of them children, um, most of the time adults. Eventually, you you get callous to it,
Mhm.
and you don't realize it. Um, but there are those calls that really hit home, um, and just having a good support system, people to talk to, and recognizing that you do have, this is something weighing on your mind, and then talking to someone about it, whether it be a spouse or a friend, even workers of mental health. The county provides an employee assistance program for correctional officers, deputies, people, and people who are tasked as first responders to help them talk through these things. I've had my fair share. I've been to plenty of calls that I've stated earlier, and I'm human. It affected me pretty badly, but I talked about it and didn't bury it deep down. I think that's the best thing that myself and anyone could do is just to address it.
In what ways has policing changed during your career? I mean, I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, but how have you adapted to those changes?
Just adhering to what the laws are saying, and realize that we are under a microscope,
Hmm.
and just continuing to put the best foot forward, um, being aware of the stereotypes that people have towards law enforcement, and being aware of other current events, to try and not let those issues that other agencies have um, be the issue, be what our agency is depicting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, there are big issues like people who have police brutality, people who died at the hands of law enforcement officers. So it's continuing to find a better way to do things and not um, resorting to deadly force if it's not necessary. And not necessary is it's kind of a scary word, and that would be only the means of protecting myself,
Mm.
saving my own life from being lost or somebody else's.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's the.
What would have you dealt with like any conflicts ethically, like within your own moral compass? Like, have you found things, conflict in that way, like with your job?
Mm, can you give me an example?
So, in a situation where you don't feel, for example, like a child is is under threat or so, and but they are at threat of being taken away from their parents, and you don't, maybe you don't see it or you don't agree with the way that it's being handled. Like those kinds of situations. I mean, that's kind of like a CPS situation, but as an officer, you are witness to those situations sometimes.
So if I don't agree with the child being taken away,
Well, just like in any situation, if you don't agree with maybe the way that your position requires you to handle something compared to your moral compass.
I mean, there's plenty of times where I've been left with a kind of a distaste for how things happened.
Mm.
But ultimately, it's um, if it's not breaking the law and it's it's adhering to the law policy, then I have to, even though I may not like it,
Mm.
I have to. I'm held to the oath that I took, which is that I will do these things. But it's like the question you asked earlier is how I deal with it. Is it's I take it with a grain of salt, and sorry, my dog's in the background and she's going nuts. Um, but yeah, I just take it with a grain of salt, and then just remembering that's what I'm tasked with doing.
Right. Are there any reforms or improvements that you would like to see?
Um, I think that things are moving in the right direction right now. I think the main goal is public safety and preserving human life. Um, so I think that laws are moving in a sense to amplify those two topics that I just mentioned, and otherwise nothing specifically.
Okay. Do you feel there are, well, you touched on this, do you feel there are any persistent misconceptions about officers, and what would you want the public to know?
I would want the public to know um, that not if they had a bad experience with a peace officer. I'm sorry. It's I try to give everyone the best foot forward and treat everyone the same, and that not all police officers are like the ones on TV.
Mm,
They're human beings just like you or I, and they are they have a lot of things going on in their mind. But most of us are just normal people, just trying to do the best job that they can, and trying to be the best professionals that we can be. Um, and that we are, at the end of the day, we are um, most of us here, to help people.
right.
And yeah,
Thank you again for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being my best big brother.
got it. I didn't have a choice. But